G'day everybody, what's cracking? It's Ralph here and I've been working on the ultimate unboxing technique. Put hours into this. I think we're good to go. It's first time ever. You're going to count me in. 3, 2, 1.
G'day everyone. What's cracking? Oh, that's dumb. How are you? Wow, look at this. This is super cool. I've always wanted one of this. Think we can use it? Yeah, let's use it.
I see you met Zari. Hope that wasn't too painful. Not sure what she said, but probably a bit cheeky, I'm sure. Thank you to XTU who have sent me this camera and asked me to do a review on it. I can say whatever I like, and so I'm going to. This is the XTU S3 Action Camera, 4K, 30 frames a second. Let's see what's in the box. You see this? Have a look. There it is. It's nice little plastic wrapping. So I take that out. That's actually the camera. It's in its nice little case. This is a waterproof case. Can go down to 40 meters. The camera itself is actually waterproof to 5 meters without the case. You just got to get the case off. It's so sealed. And that is as snug a seal as you'll ever need. Knowing you can go to 40 meters with it. It's got a couple of buttons on top to control these buttons, button on the side to control this button. It's got a rear screen that's 1.5 inches and a front screen which is 1 inch. Well played, XTU. Let's see what else you get in the box. A charging cable, a bike clip, safety strands, some sticky things you can whack on your forehead and whack the camera on your forehead and away you go. External microphone, sponge box. What's that? Like, is that if you want to throw it around, it just protects it? Other mounts. These all come in the box, and I think this is like a lens cover. Well played. Like, would have cost like a couple of bucks to make, but well played. First action camera I've ever seen comes with the gear, one of these, and then it's got some instructions, which we might use, but we'll see how intuitive this little box is. It's a good weight, 1/4 screw on the bottom, so you can mount it to whatever. It's got a battery. And then it's got a little pull tag. You pull the battery out, which means you could get spare batteries to stick in here. There's only one battery with it, so we'll see how long it lasts, but it would be handy to have 2 batteries. Nice and secure. I like it, and it smells nice. It's a good size, it's a good weight, it's about what you'd want and what you'd expect from a high quality action cam. So we're going to put it through its paces in a variety of different situations to see if it stacks up, see if it's something that you think you would like to invest in, given that the price point sits below DJI Osmo Action Insta360, $139 US to take this little puppy home with all these array of attachments and accessories. Alright, let's see what we got. This, guys, is Burleigh Heads Beach, one of the premier surf destinations of the world, and you get to see it firsthand. And we're going to see just how good this camera is at going underwater. Here we go! What did you think? Were you impressed? Was the clarity good? That was 4K at 30 frames a second, so it should have been real sweet and nice. One of the things this camera has going for it is you can stick it in the water without a case on it. Now you can only go down 5 meters or so don't try and break the camera, but it's super handy if you're mucking about around the swimming pool, you're down at the beach, you're going mountain bike riding, as we'll see in a few seconds, in case you hit some water. It's really resistant to water. You just want to make sure all the doors and the buttons are secure so you don't flood it. And also you'll find that once you turn it on, it looks like it's turned off and you've killed it, but that hasn't actually happened. Your camera is still fine. There just needs to be a few more indicator lights on it, I think, that tell you, no, we're still recording, it's still good. You haven't broke me just yet. Lens on this is 2.8 f-stop, so the aperture is 2.8, but on a full frame equivalent, because the sensor's so small, it's about 11. That's why most of the things that you shoot with this action camera are in focus most of the time, unless you go super close to them, but then you've got to worry about the minimum focusing distance, so you can go too close and it can stay blurry because you're too close. It shoots massively wide at 13mm. That's what we call ultra wide. It's super wide. It's what you want from an action camera, and you can zoom in increments, but what it does is an internal crop into that, so you lose some of the quality of what the sensor would pick up and some of the megapixels and some of the 4K advantage as you would crop in. It's not that the lens has the opportunity to do that. There's also no way of taking off the lens cover, so if you damage the lens, you scratch the lens, you actually have to buy a new camera. It's pretty robust. It's been knocking around in my camera bag now for a little while, and there's actually very few dents and scratches and stuff on it, which is really impressive, and the screen is still Mickey Mouse. So we've done it on 1080p at 30 frames a second. And we're about to go into the pet shop and buy something for this video, so you'll have to stay tuned for what that's going to be. But you can make up your mind about the audio quality.
I'll tell you what it is.
Yeah, you can make up your mind about the audio quality and what the colors look like, whether the skin tones look realistic. I have a beautiful colored skin, so if you're wondering, it should be beautiful on screen. I'm not going to touch any of that, but what I will do is plug in this microphone that comes with it. So I did that and nothing happened. I had to wiggle around, and then eventually we got some audio. This microphone for use in loud, noisy areas where you want to magnify the direct volume of the person speaking. Currently using front view. Front view is working really nice, as Haim enjoys looking at himself while we film, and we are going to do a few more tests now. There's an LDC function on this that takes out the warp. The warp is, at the moment, you can see these trees that are all straight are actually bent on frame. So I'm going to now take the same shot, except I'm going to turn the de-warp on. What do you reckon? Pretty amazing, right? What a shift. Now, part of that crops in, the way a camera does that is it crops in. And so my question is, because I'm recording in 1080p, is the quality compromised a great deal? I could shoot it in 4K, but we'd never know because 4K quality is so good. So 1080p, what's the quality look like? Now what I'm going to do is use the zoom function, just zoom in all the way. So the de-warp function is off, LDC is off, but I'm zoomed in all the way, and the question is, what's the quality like of resolution, and are the trees straight? Now I'm going to go to full zoomed in on de-warp mode, on LDC mode. All right, so what do you think about this? This is full zoomed in. The question we have is, what is the resolution like? Is it still tack sharp, or does it pixelate and get blurry as we've zoomed in? And are the trees still straight? I think they should be. So let me talk about this little camera for a bit. It's really robust. It's got a door just here that gives you access to a mini HDMI and a mini USB plug. It takes some getting off. You've got the shooting button and the mode button. The mode button, if you hold it down, brings your vision from the back screen to the front screen. So you can vlog with it and look straight into the front screen and see what's going on, as opposed to the back screen. Also, the touch capabilities of it are really on point. It doesn't get mistaken when you move it around like some other instant cameras. When you commit, you commit. I'll show you some footage now and walk you through how easy it is to navigate through all the settings. But this camera so far is really good. The speaker is just here and the microphone, I think, is just here, which means it picks up your voice. So if I hold it like this, it'll pick up my voice. We're at the surf at the moment, so it will be muffled with all of this. But I would recommend using this without the external microphone that comes with it, because that thing distorts voice too much and takes out some pitch and bass and makes it very flat and feels really fake. So I'd stick away from that. I don't think you need it. I think the microphone in this is ample. You guys remember at the start of the video I had this funny little foam thing, and I'm like, oh, it looks like a cushion. Turns out it's a windsock. So I thought I'd wait till a windy day. It would just take it forever, but now we've got a bit of wind happening. Hopefully it should be buffering against the microphone. I'm going to stick this on and let's see if it makes a difference. Ready? So what do you think? Does it work? It's now blowing a gale, so we'll see if it how it affects the audio. It now looks like it's rugged up. It's just got this foam thing all the way around it. It's got space for you to touch the on and off button, but the shutter release, the red record button, doesn't have a hole for that, but it does have a hole for you to put the tripod in. Well, here's an essential for action cameras in this day and age. It can be powered off an external battery pack. I was a bit concerned about this, but if you plug it in to the micro USB side plug, you can actually go all right with this. One of the other challenges I found is that little latch that holds it down. That is a mongrel to get open. Like, it gets stuck, and like, you'd think that would be to ensure it's security against water and dust. But actually, after I just took it in the surf and I came out and I opened up the lever, opened the door, I had to use the knife to do it. It's got more and more stuck as we've gone on. The door doesn't detach. It would be great if the door detached, but also there's a little bit of water residue. Just have a look here. I just took a bit of a footage of it. So that was as after I dried it off. I washed it off, I dried it off, and then I finally, an hour later, opened up the latch door, and there's some residue there of water. So it's a little bit of a security risk. I therefore encourage you not to take it in the water all the time outside of the case. The case does come with it. You should use the case. One of the challenges with the case is if the camera's hot and you put it in the case, it will fog up the case, and so you won't be able to get any footage and you won't be able to see what the camera is doing. So make sure the camera's been off for some time before you put it in the case. But the case is fairly functional, so the buttons enable you to operate the camera with ease once it's in the case. And the case, of course, comes with a bunch of equivalent GoPro mounts, so you can mount it to whatever you wish.
Let's start talking about this time-lapse, the function. So I put it on 4K at 1/4 of a second, and I let it run for the whole sunrise. And we had an epic sunrise that day, so I was really stoked. There's this pool in Burleigh where they're rock pools where the water and the surf come in, but on low tides you get this beautiful reflection. And so that's what I did. And so as you'll see, as the light comes up, the detail improves, and then as it really looks good, you start to see the shadows get recovered in these rocks, and the rocks really come into focus. Now, it's a 2.8 aperture lens, but because of the small sensor, it's about the equivalent of an 11 aperture on a full frame, which is why stuff that's right in the background is in focus as well as the rocks. Now, the disappointment I have about this is it blows out the background. So the clouds are moving across. It was just an incredible sunrise. The sun rose and then a storm swept through, which was then recovered later on as the clouds passed. And so you had these beautiful colours reflected in the pool. But one, I didn't position the camera spot on. Now obviously when it's dark it's hard to focus, but what I should have done is turn the Wi-Fi capacity on the camera, linked it to my phone through the app that works pretty well, and then I could have got a clear view of actually what I was focused on by using the phone, and I could have composed the shot accurately to how I wanted it, but it never crossed my mind. So if you're doing this, use that little tip to get really good time-lapse framing. And two, it just feels like it's a little bit lacking. It's just a bit blown out. However, on the whole, pretty satisfied with how the time-lapse function on this camera works, and could absolutely recommend it based on that time-lapse function.
Let's do a low light test. I'm walking down the street of Burleigh. It's about 10 o'clock at night. There's a fair bit of lighting around, which will give you a good feel for how it goes in low light. It's currently on 1600 ISO, and here's the funny thing, that if I put it on auto ISO, it actually gets brighter. Watch this. It's kind of crazy, right? How does that work? I don't understand it at all. Now, the quality should be rubbish because action cameras are not made to work in low light, so it should be really pixelated and messy. But the trick with this camera to get most out of the low light, I don't even, am I in focus or am I blurry? I'm not sure. It'll be interesting to see, for you to see and just make a call on it. But the interesting thing about this, if you take it off gyro, which is the image stabilization, it performs better in low light. So say the instructions. So yeah, what do you think? You've got to weigh up whether it's actually you're going to use it in low light, and if so, what sort of low light you're going to use it in. But it's kind of handy to be able to see how it focuses and goes in and out, and how it adapts on auto settings. It's interesting to see how it focuses and how it balances and handles the light as it goes from dark to light as I walk in and out of the shadows. Does it hold me in focus? Does it struggle to find me? Does it make me so blurry and messy that you cannot see my beautiful face? Because that would be a tragedy. I don't really feel for you. So this is the low light test. I hope it's been helpful. Let's talk about manual control on this camera. You can control everything except the aperture. The aperture is set, but everything else you can change. You can change shutter speed, you can change ISO, you can change exposure compensation, you can change all the metering, you can change the white balance, you can change, I don't know, everything except the color. It comes in black. I love black. You can change the sharpness, you can change the saturation. The ISO goes from 100 all the way up to 1600, or you can just give yourself a break and shoot on auto. And the camera settings, the way it works things out, are pretty good when you either want to point and shoot the camera, or when you want to just point and shoot video with the camera. I would recommend just sticking it on 4K, that way you'll get the most quality for your video. But we're now going to take this and I'm going to put it next to my Osmo Action. That's right, the big heavyweight enters the ring, and I'm going to shoot 4K on both of them from exactly the same vantage point, and then stick those next to each other, so you can see that if the 4K on this lives up to a 4K on, I reckon, the gold standard of action cameras in this day and age.
You'll notice when you zoom in on the 4K footage from the S3 that it's a bit mushy, a bit blurry. That's likely because of the bit rate of the camera. The sensor is a 4K sensor, but the processor has to take information off that 4K sensor and translate it into video very quickly. That's called the bit rate. The bit rate of the DJI Osmo Action is about 100 megabytes per second, but the bit rate of the S3 could be as low as 2 or 5 or 10 or 20, which will affect the quality of video you end up with. But if you're not shooting on 4K all the time, and honestly, there's no reason if you're going to buy this camera why you need 4K, you can enjoy the 1080p, which give you a really wonderful quality finish, because the requirements on the processor are far less demanding, giving you a great result in 1080p.
Has this cool thing on the screen where it tells you how long you've got left to record based on the space left inside. I think it's also will be factored in by the battery length as well. You have a little battery indicator. Batteries last for about an hour if you go full tilt video with everything on it. Right, so if you're filming with everything on it, so your gyro, your distortion control, everything else, you get about an hour's worth, and it takes about 3 hours to charge. So not the best ratio, but you can buy a backup battery from Amazon. I'll put a link in the description below so you can get a separate battery and charger if it makes things easier for you. If you just want to bust it out, stick another one in, and away you go. This morning we're in Orang State Forest in what used to be, and still is I guess, the Commonwealth Games track of 2018.
Yeah, that would be correct, Ralph.
Yes. This is Ori. Ori's going to help me out with the gyro test on the camera. So basically we're going to strap the camera to him, send him down this 10K track. I'm going to kick back with a cup of coffee and we'll have a look at the footage. Going to shoot 4K at 30 frames a second. We're going to shoot it without the gyro, with the gyro, and then compare it to a stabilized rock steady footage of the DJI Osmo Action, so you can get a real good feel for how stable this gets. And this is a bumpy track, it's a rocky track, there's a couple of jumps and twists and turns, so you're in for some good footage. Are you enjoying the epic surf in the background? This is the Point Break of Burleigh Heads. Let's talk about the resolution of this camera. It shoots 4K at 30 frames a second, so it doesn't go 60 or 90 or 120. At 4K it would be epic. It shoots 1080p at 30 frames a second, 60 frames a second and 90 frames a second. So here's a little bit of a show of slow-mo and how that feels on this camera. Also got this weird setting of 1440 and it shoots 60 frames a second and 30 frames a second if you're really wanting to increase your quality as well as slow down the footage. 60 frames a second means you can slow it down 50% of what you would normally watch it. 90 frames a second obviously is 30%. The reason I'm standing in a car park is because it has this dash cam function where you can set this up to record at 1, 3, 5 or 10 minute loops. And a loop basically means it re-records on the information that's just recorded, so it doesn't take up extra space, and it's perfect for dash cam. So if you have it there and something happens, you just stop the camera once it's happened and you've got the last 10 minutes from wherever you stopped the camera, so you can get a suction mount, stick it on the bottom of your windscreen and have it pointing out, or dashboard mounted secure tripod facility to shoot out into the world, see what's happening out there. It's also got face recognition, which I'm not sure I don't think it really matters on a camera like this. Now you can also program it to do segment videos. So you film for an hour, it cuts it into 3-minute segments or 5-minute segments, if that's handy for you. You can also set it to shoot on 30 or 60 or I think 90-second short videos, and so it shoots and then cuts off. It also has auto dormant, so dormant's put it on standby, and to activate it you just hit the screen. Also has auto on and off, and you can set both of those to as long or as short as you prefer within the set menu options. And then you finally have voice control, and so you can control this with your voice. So you can say, please make me a coffee, S3. So you know, the other day when I bought that parrot seed, I mean for you it was just a couple of minutes ago, you know, here's what I've done to check out the Wi-Fi capabilities of the S3. On the other side of the garden, just here, we've set up a pile of birdseed with the camera just waiting to snap it. Now that works because over here, which is, I don't know, about 10 meters away, I've got my phone. Here's what it looks like. And the idea is that I'm just going to sneak out here with some parrots, land on the birdseed, and press it and see if it actually works. It's set up to shoot at 4K 30 frames a second, so it should be pretty mint, but I can't take this inside and it's just disconnected from the camera. So I'm having a bit of problems with connectivity. It's a clear line of sight. It doesn't work if you break the line of sight, and at the moment it's maybe 8 meters. So good things to know. There's some limitations on the Wi-Fi. If you have some creative ideas in mind, you might be struggling with it. If you leave it on standby for too long, even though the phone's good to go and the camera's good to go, it drops its link. So let me do my best to summarize so much content in such a little camera. This camera is an entry-level action camera that if you're looking for a knockabout, something to throw in your car, have in your bag, pull out when you need it, and to do the things you want an action camera to do, this will do the job at a really, really good price. Now, if you want something that's more high-end, like you're moving into your GoPros, then this isn't the camera for you. But it's the camera for maybe 70% of people that will buy an action camera. You don't need to spend an expensive camera. You can buy this. So it's of a good weight. It's of a good size. It's got a front screen. The battery life is pretty decent at 1 hour. It's got stabilization called Gyro, which is fairly good. It shoots stills of 20 megapixels. You can even shoot RAW in 12 megapixels. The touch screen is effective and intuitive. It's easy to learn. You can learn the camera in 5 minutes flat. Has a 1/4-inch screw for the tripod. It's waterproof without the cage. Shoots 30 frames a second, which is preferable for an action camera. Has 30 grabs within a second rather than 24, which means there's no blurring between those things, and you'll catch more of the action as it unfolds. And it has a ton of features that we'll be here all day if I was talking about those things. So what are some of the challenges? Why would you not buy this? Well, the 4K, as you've seen, is mushy when you push in, you zoom in on it, and you really want it to be crisp and sharp, but it's not. Honestly, don't shoot 4K on it. 4K is a great selling point, but shoot 1080p and you've got no stress and no worries at all. The Wi-Fi is a bit of a challenge. You've only got like 8 meters or so in clear line of sight, and then it starts to break down. So be aware of that. I wouldn't be buying this camera to be relying on the Wi-Fi factor. I wish it had a USB-C plug, just because it would make it so much easier to transfer. Most devices these days have that, to transfer data and also to charge it. So USB-C would be a big win on this camera. Its underwater clarity, as you have seen, is not great. It's not wonderful. That was really clear water. And so it loses some of the detail as it distorts and tries to capture the image through the density of the water. But it would be great in a swimming pool. Like, I wouldn't take this to the Great Barrier Reef to catch those like amazing, like incredible coral photos, but chucking around in the swimming pool, going down the surf and having a bit of a splash, then this is the one for you. This battery door, gosh, it's an absolute shocker. It takes forever. I have to use my knife to get in there now. It's just locked in
and does not move. That is a real challenge. Now I realize they've made it so tight to make it waterproof, but it needs to have something done about it, because I can't open it with my hands. I have to use an implement now to open it. And you need it to charge the camera. So you need access to that to charge the camera. And you also need access to download straight from the camera, or you can pull out the memory card which sits in next to the battery. And the battery is a separate door which seems to fling open without an issue. It has this weird thing where it puts a stamp of the date on it and a stamp of XTU, and you can choose to remove it. Of course you choose to remove it. I don't even know why that's an option. It's a little bit strange. There's no volume on the playback, so you can play it back and you're listening for wanting to see how it went. There's no volume on the playback of the things, which is a challenge when you want to play back and see how the volume is working on the camera. Hence some of the audio throughout this video that's captured on here, like it was muffled with the water because there's a drop of water probably still in the microphone that you're trying to communicate through. That's standard with all action cams, but you can't test it out to see how much it's affected and whether you should go back or not. It fogs up too when you put it in its case, and if this is a different temperature to the case, it fogs up the case and you can't see anything, and it won't take any good images. So I'd be wary about when you use the case and how you use it. The extra mic you plug in, I would not worry about. It's more of a gimmick that I would just toss out, and you get pretty good audio out of this. And last but not least, you can't replace the lens if you scratch it or damage it. You have to buy a new camera. That's part of what you get with a cheaper brand. So it costs less, so that they put less into these things so you can afford it and use it more. Has this been helpful? I hope it has. I hope it's broadened your eyes around this neat little camera. Thanks XTU for sending it through. If you'd like to be part of the creative crew, please subscribe. There's videos that come out on Tuesday and Saturday. I'd love to be a part of it. Love to ask some questions down below. Let us know. I'll put some links down below so you can check out this camera. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you in the next video. 10 minutes, nothing's happened. It just... We'll just wait. Just taking his time to start the car. There it is. He probably tried to do it really quietly, which is why it misfired.